In 2006, roommates Marc Merrill and Brandon Beck founded a small startup called Riot Games. They dreamed of one day making video games for hardcore gamers like themselves, the kind of games they could spend hundreds of hours playing, testing their skills. But this isn't their story.
I quit my job as a high school biology teacher. I decided I hated science and I loved video games more. I took a job at a video game retail store selling video games. My students would come in and be like, "Mr. B, what are you doing here?" Like, you little shits. And that was a humbling experience. My name is Paul Beleza, and I was the first intern at Riot Games.
Hi, my name is Jeff Jew, and I was Riot's second intern. I was at USC, and I met another classmate of mine named Paul Beleza.
One day in late summer, I saw a job pop up for a startup in Santa Monica.
Paul shows up and he says, "Hey Jeff, I found this internship on Craigslist for this place called Riot Games."
I sent in my resume, my information, and a day later I got an email from a guy named Marc Merrill, and he said he wanted to talk to me.
And they say, "Hey, why don't you swing by? We have this small office. Cool, I'll come check it out."
I came in for an interview. The building from the outside was a little industrial-looking building.
Super scrappy.
So I walk in, I walk up the stairs, I'm like, this place looks like it's straight out of the 70s.
2 small offices for Marc and Brandon, and then a hallway in the back for developers. Almost very like wet feeling in the office, I'm not gonna lie.
They walked me into a conference room, which was the only conference room in the office. And I met Marc, Brandon, and a couple other people.
Marc and Brandon were playing a ton of games, and my interview with them was mostly just talking about like StarCraft and Dota and games like that.
Both Marc and Brandon were harping on that need to just make games for people like us.
Riot Games was really clear and embodied in the name of the company from day one. The idea they had in their heads were gamers like holding up their joysticks and their keyboards and writing for better games.
They're like, "Do you want to be an intern?" And I was like, "Yes, finally, like I'm in, like I'm gonna get an internship in the game industry." I became the first intern at Riot at that moment.
So when I got the job, the position was quality assurance, the idea that you come in and play the game and help them figure out how to make it better. There wasn't much quality to assure at the time. There wasn't anything there.
It sucked for a really long time.
Playtesting League of Legends was a harrowing experience. My name is Colt Hallam, and I was the third intern at Riot Games. You would have these giant bugs where just characters would fall over dead sometimes for no reason.
It was a flat plane with no bottom, like a clear glass bottom forever.
And we would do lane tests and 1v1 each other.
And some little characters running across, no environment, nothing.
We didn't even have a concept of brush at the time. We would just run up the lanes and smack each other with their abilities.
There were a lot of flubs here and there.
It was just a broken mess. It just wouldn't do the things we wanted to do. So we'd pop in there for 10 minutes, test something new, and be like, I can't achieve the objectives. I can't coordinate. It just felt sloppy.
Steve Snow was like the only producer at the time. In the early days, he showed up and he noticed we weren't playing the game. Maybe we'd play the game once a day in the morning just to see if new things had come in, but we'd grown accustomed to the slow rate of change, and so we kind of got lazy. So he basically was like, "Okay guys," he rounded us all up and he said, "You gotta eat your own dog food. Every day, we're gonna play the game, and that's how we're gonna make it better."
So once we started to do the daily playtest, as an entire company, we got to see what needed to get fixed and prioritized.
Marc and Brandon's early vision of the company was unique because they gave us, each person in the company, a lot of autonomy. So, myself, I was an intern, Paul's an intern, Colt's an intern. They let us do so much more than you would think an intern would do at a company. Like, we got to work on the game, we got to come up with the game rules, we got to work on characters.
When making a character, you can approach it in a number of different angles. The main angle that we had is we found something, a nugget. Like, Teemo came from a napkin drawing.
Teemo was born from seeing the dark side of League of Legends. We had Scion, we had Singed, we had Annie, who's super dark. I want somebody who's an underdog, courageous. He fights guys that are 10 times bigger than him, and he just outsmarts his opponents. So that's where he's born from. I think in the game, after you play against Teemo, you think differently. He's kind of an asshole.
Teemo is the devil.
but I think in his heart, he's very pure and courageous. It was really fun to be able to come up with those characters. And we eventually ended up being able to characterize the style we wanted to be in as basically pop fantasy, which is archetypes you know from fantasy, twisted in a way that brought them to life kind of in the modern day. So in the early days, we had some angel investors and we had a really limited amount of money. So we basically had some drop dead dates. One of our biggest deadlines was we had to make a game demo and we had to get it out. There was kind of a do or die situation.
We actually found out at different points in time that if we didn't hit the E3 deadline, our company might go under.
If we didn't hit those targets and we didn't receive that funding, there would be no Riot Games. The studio would have to fold. So there was definitely a sense of gotta keep going. So at the time, we had to go from making something from nothing into a full game product. It's everything from getting art in the game, and that's just concept art, 3D art, animation, particle effects. You need to have like the environment art, you need concept art for that. You need to place it, come up with design for each of these characters. What about the menus? You have to do the GUI design and all front end design. What software license program? What type of servers do we use? How do you build a server? What's going to be located? Should we build a store? How do we build a network? Like, just imagine making a game like from scratch, and I'm like, man, what are we doing here? Like, how are we gonna get this done? I don't know what I'm doing. Does anybody else know what they're doing? We spent about 2 weeks cutting a demo video.
Zoom in of like the map and some of the characters, put together this sizzle reel, trying to get some music in there.
Like, I remember we agonized over the music choice and the pacing of the video and just trying to find the right music. And when we did, it just clicked.
You saw Annie, you saw Singe, you flew over the castle.
Flow through the character selections, like, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. We did the spinning wheel champ select, which we then realized if we had 40 characters would never work.
But at 6, it was fine.
Hey, check out this really cool game that we put together in no time at all. We hoped that it would actually convince enough people to get excited, and it did.
You know, the whole company came together, put this video together, launched it, investors were happy. You know, got another 6 months.
It was about 9 o'clock at night. Kind of asked each other, hey guys, do you want to play another game of League of Legends after we finish playtesting? And the answer was yes. And we did again and again. And I remember Steve Snow walking over. He was just like, why are you playing this game? And I was like, because it's fun. He just stared at us and was just like, you're playing for fun? Holy shit. Everyone stop what you're doing. He called the entire company together. It's the one like football pep talk moment that I can really think about in my life, where he was like, listen, you got it, you did it, like full steam ahead.
Looking back in this 10-year journey, I was able to see this company go from just a ragtag group of like-minded gamers and developers to where we are today. And I just feel really, really fortunate to have seen it and be a part of it.
The idea that we got to make a game that we play, that like our friends and families enjoyed, that we enjoyed, that is carried out throughout Riot's history, making games for players by gamers.